Tom Fitzgerald had his annual exit interview, and I want to share my main takeaways from the press conference. We have a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here at the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play announcer, Devils Wire Pucks Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. As promised, we're going to break down Tom Fitzgerald's exit interview. I said it in the prior episode. I was not able to make the press conference, but I was hoping three things would be asked Fitzgerald's way. The first being, will the Devils actually make a splashy move? Because a lot of people were disappointed with the Devils' somewhat silent trade deadline. Now, to the Devils' credit, some players actually did rise to the occasion, including Brian Dumoulin, but I think it's safe to say that people are expecting a little bit more. The second thing, what's the mindset heading into the offseason? How would Tom Fitzgerald assess his offense as presently constructed? Because I think a lot of people want to see more depth scoring. And then the third thing, injuries. The Devils can't keep doing the same routine year after year after year, where we hype them up. They're a good team. Unfortunately, they are plagued with injuries. Now, injuries are a part of the game. They're unpredictable, but it seems like the Devils have always been bit with the injury bug the last few seasons. We've seen a lot of players go down with various injuries. Some players are getting shoulder surgery. It's gotten to a point where I think the Devils have a discount for shoulder surgery procedures. But on a serious note, we're going to talk about the matter because that definitely needs to be addressed. In the first segment, we will hear what Fitzgerald has to say about the roster as it's presently constructed. Then in the second segment, we'll talk about his mindset heading into the offseason. And then in the third and final segment, he talked about Jack Hughes' injury. He talked about a few other players' injuries. And he was also asked about collectively, how do the Devils deal with these injuries? So that will be to close out today's episode. But I first want to start off with this. Fitzgerald said that the season wasn't great, but it was still good because they made the playoffs. Now, head coach Sheldon Keefe was joined alongside Fitzgerald for his exit interview. They had a conjoined press conference, and Sheldon Keefe had an interesting thought. He said that the Devils, out of 32 teams, finished 16th, which isn't good. It's average. He said that this team is not average and that they need to do the necessary steps in order to take this team to the next level. Let me just make this perfectly clear. Sheldon Keefe is not at fault for the Devils' struggles this season. But I do agree with Sheldon Keefe, and I talked about it in the prior episode. It's one of the reasons why I felt as though this season was a failure for the Devils, because they are not an average team. And it wasn't just enough to make the playoffs. I expected a little bit more from them. And unfortunately, after the Christmas break, I was left disappointed. And now that the season is over, I have more questions than answers for the Devils. I just wanted to start off with that. All right. Here's what Fitzgerald had to say about the plan heading into the off season. He talked about the roster presently constructed and how he would assess it for right now. Take a listen.
You know, we've got a lot of decisions to make on certain players, whether we bring guys back, trade players. We won't be coming back with the same group, I can tell you that, because it wasn't good enough. So at the deadline, you know, you weigh everything out, you know, where we're at health-wise, where people, who was available, you know, what are the acquisition costs. My mindset, and I think I said it after the deadline, was I felt it was no secret what I was looking for at the deadline, what I felt this team needed positionally, and went hard at it. Made some real quality offers. However, we didn't get the people that we tried to get.
Changes are coming because he is right. Some players underperformed. And they're not going to run it back with the same roster, which I found quite intriguing. But the question I have, how will the Devils go about this? Because let me remind everyone, players with a no movement clause, Timo Meier, Jesper Bratt, Andre Palat, Dougie Hamilton, Jacob Markstrom. Players with a no trade clause, Jonathan Kovacevic, Brett Pesce, Brendan Dillon. Players with a modified no trade clause, Eric Haula, Nico Hischier, Jonas Siegenthaler, and Stefan Nason. Here are the players that are projected to be UFAs. Tomas Tatar, Nathan Bastian, Curtis Lazar, Daniel Sprong, Justin Dowling, Brian Dumoulin, and Dennis Cholowski. So my thing is like, okay, you won't run it back with the same team, but does that mean you're just going to let some players walk in free agency and try to replace them? Are you going to try to make a big time move? Fitzy was asked about Jim Rutherford's controversial comments about Quinn and the fact that he wants to team up with his brothers in the future. Fitzy did not talk about it, rightfully so. You don't want to get dinged with tampering because I think Gary Bettman is going to have a field day with the Canucks organization. I don't know why Rutherford just continued to dig deeper, and deeper. But anyway, digressing a little bit, I do think the Devils want to make a splashy move, but it's easier said than done. And I talked about it during the trade deadline because who would you incorporate in a package deal? I would say like some players that come to mind that could give you something are Dougie Hamilton, maybe Andre Palat. But the problem is Dougie has a no movement clause. He also has a modified no trade clause. So he'll leave when he wants to leave. Andre Palat the same way. I said it in the prior episode that I think Fitzy is going to have a tough conversation with some players on the roster who do have a modified no trade clause or a no movement clause, which is, look, we need to make these changes. Can you work with us? We'll see what we can do to accommodate you. Or maybe he's just like, we're going to let a bunch of our projected UFAs walk and we're going to try to replace them somehow, some way. This is just where I'm a little confused because it's like the players that are on the roster for the foreseeable future, they have clauses attached to their contracts. And the players that are projected to be UFAs, let's face it, like Tomas Tatar, if you let him walk, fine. He's probably going to retire anyway. He doesn't have much longer in the league, if I'm being completely honest. I would be open to bringing back Brian Dumoulin, maybe Curtis Lazar. I know he was dealing with an injury as well. You let Nathan Bastian walk, that's not really much of a loss. Daniel Sprong, I think he was solid, but does he deserve to come back? Justin Dowling, let him walk. But even then, those aren't significant losses, if that makes sense. It's just like, okay, I think they're easily replaceable, but how do you replace them? And another thing is, I do want to see the Devils make a splashy move, but it's easier said than done. How does Fitzy go about it? So when he says that changes are coming, they're not going to run it back with the same roster, I see one or two things. One, he will make a splashy move. It won't be easy, but he will make a splashy move. Or two, he's just going to let a bunch of the projected UFAs just walk and say, we'll try with some other player. That's how I see it going. Could be a mixture of both, but I don't really know what to make of it. I do want to have faith in Tom Fitzgerald, and we'll talk about this in the next segment. When the Devils needed physicality and also a goalie, he pulled through. It's early May. A lot can happen. We'll see how this goes. Obviously, I will do a bunch of silly season discussions, which if you don't know, silly season is when I basically look at the rumor mill, and if the Devils are in the running for a particular player, I'll talk about it on this show. So keep an ear out for that. But for the time being, yeah, the Devils do need to shake up their roster a little bit because scoring was sometimes tough to come by. Defense, I think it's improved, but the roster in general can improve if that makes sense. So we'll see what happens. And I really hope that the Devils re-sign Jake Allen because he's also projected to be a UFA, but Jake Allen might get a pay increase somewhere else, but we'll see what happens. All right. We're going to talk about depth scoring because that was also a big talking point during the press conference, and a lot of people were talking about it on social media. But before we continue, here's my colleague Ross from Locked On Senators with a message from Bear Mattress.
An award-winning mattress can change your life. I speak from experience. It happened to me. After years of uncomfortable sleeps, I recently switched to Bear Mattress, and the results were instant. Bear Mattress is designed with a focus on recovery, cooling, and pressure relief to upgrade your sleep and improve your overall quality of life. I used to deal with night sweats, but Bear's best-in-class cooling ensures optimal temperature regulation, which prevents overheating and helps me stay comfortable all night long. Bear offers a wide variety of mattresses, but to get the right one for you, take their sleep quiz that matches you to your perfect mattress based on body type and sleep preferences. Go to bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout to get 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's bearmattress.com. Use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get 40% off site-wide. Bearmattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
Okay, here's what Tom Fitzgerald had to say about his offense from this season and how they're going to go about it. Take a listen.
Oh, I think players underachieved, for sure. I think players who have scored enough goals in this league to give assurance that we have depth scoring didn't. I said it just moments ago, scoring goals is extremely tough to do in this league. I bang my head against the wall every day wondering, really, what is depth scoring? I've asked my team, I asked my analytics group, tell me what it is. What is it the great teams in this league have in depth scoring? Is it 12, 20 goal scorers? No, we know that's not real. Is it 12, 10-plus goal scorers? Possibly. That's our goal. But again, it's being able to put the puck in the net at appropriate time consistently that we didn't see this year. So when I talked about depth scoring in the earlier or whatever last year, it was really the last on my to-do list because we had to get better in other areas. We had to keep the puck out of our net. We had to defend better. We had to move pucks up the ice, more effectively. Right now, and I've said it again, I think it proves that the tic-tac-toe plays aren't always there, and getting ugly goals is as good as a tic-tac-toe goal.
What is depth scoring? That definitely is an interesting talking point. I talked about it in the previous episode. Tyler Toffoli added a lot to the Devils roster when he was here for about 60 games last season. Now, let me make this clear. I'm not saying that the Devils should pursue Tyler Toffoli. He got paid by the San Jose Sharks. He's got that stability. I think he also has a no-trade clause. I'm not saying that the Devils should pursue Tyler Toffoli, but let's admit something. He was the epitome of depth scoring. What does depth scoring mean? I think it just means who can consistently give you a goal. And Fitzy even said it during that soundbite, which is it's hard to score in this league. It's easier said than done. But a lot of people were giving Fitzy some grief on social media saying, oh, that's so concerning. He doesn't know what depth scoring means. What is he talking about? Allow me to clear the air a little bit. And this is just from my perspective, so bear with me. I think what Fitzy is just trying to say is when you look at players like Paul Cotter, he had 16 goals this year, which is a career high for him. Stefan Nason was the same way. Nason had 22 goals this season, and he ranked 4th on the team for most goals. just below Heischer, Hughes, and Meyer. So by that logic, it's like the Devils do have their depth in terms of scoring because Paul Cotter, career high in goals, Stefan Nason, career high in goals. Like, what's the problem here? I think Fitzy touched on it during the soundbite as well, which is it comes down to balance and consistency. So Paul Cotter, most of his goals came earlier in the season. He got off to a red hot start, but he fell into a deep slump when he wasn't contributing at all. He had zeros across the board for many weeks. And he even admitted that he was not really performing all that well. He still brought physicality, but the scoring dried up a little bit. I anticipated for it to dry up, but maybe not to that extent. Stefan Nason, 22 goals, but half of them came on the power play. Now, don't get me wrong, that is impressive, and Nason is one of the best net front guys in the league. I cannot deny that, but he even admitted during his exit interviews is that if you expect him to go from end to end and score a goal, then you're assessing him wrong. That's not his game. His game is to hang out in front of the net and get those greasy goals. And as proven in the playoffs, sometimes just relying on your power play to score is not an efficient way to rack up the goals. Paul Bizinet even broke it down last year when he was assessing the Devils. It's definitely good to have a great power play, but when you run into a great penalty killing team like the Hurricanes, where's your scoring going to come from? And Nason, can you rely on him to get a goal night in and night out? Cotter, can you rely on him to get a goal night in and night out? Or at least not go on long stretches without scoring? I think there's no better example than Dawson Mercer. Mercer finished with 19 goals, one less than last season. But the problem is that Mercer had 27 goals during the 2022-2023 season. Keep in mind, that was a season in which the Devils had 50-plus wins. That same year, Dougie Hamilton had 22 goals. This year, he only had 9, albeit he did miss significant time due to injury, but 9 goals, I think Dougie can do a little bit better. Tomas Tatar, he had 20 goals that season. This year, he only had 7. I get it. Tomas Tatar has gotten older. He's not the same player that he once was, but I expected just a little bit better from Tomas Tatar. I think the thing about depth scoring is like who can give you a goal consistently. And I said it. I think a good example would be Tyler Toffoli because he wasn't the go-to guy for the Devils. He wasn't the fastest skater, but he was very smart. He knew where to position himself, and he had some electrifying moments with the Devils. Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, Timo Meier, I would say that's the core for the Devils, and we can rely on them to score, especially when March rolls around for Timo Meier. But who was the X factor? It was Tyler Toffoli. Now, the problem with the Devils last year was that their goaltending was not good. Their defense was not really that good. So their goal scoring abilities kind of went to waste because it doesn't matter if you score 3 goals if you let up 4. It was the opposite this year. Goaltending improved a lot when Jacob Markstrom came along. Defense improved, I would say. Offense, outside the top 6, sometimes tough to come by. So that's my thing when it comes to depth scoring, which is like, look, you can look at the stat sheet and just say like, yeah, Paul Cotter, career high in goals. Stefan Nason, career high in goals. What's going on? Well, can they do that consistently and not just like at one point of the year? What I mean by that is like they need to spread it out a little bit more. Nason admitted during his exit interviews, first half of the season, he got off to a good start. Second half, he struggled. In his career, it's usually the opposite. He gets off to a slow start, but he picks it up second half of the year. Erik Haula, I think, is the same way, just different. Slow start, but he finished strong. Timo Meier, same way to an extent. My thing is like, when it comes to a depth score, I need someone who can consistently score, not just like get off to a good start and then just disappear as the season progresses. Or if they are going to struggle, they're not going to go like 10 or so games without registering at least a point. Like that can't happen. That's happened to Nason. That's happened to Cotter. That's happened to Holla. It's happened to Mercer at points. You can't continue to do that. So that's what I think depth scoring is. And I think that's what Fitzgerald needs to assess. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Devils were so successful a couple seasons ago, because it wasn't just their top six that was producing goals. You had some other guys producing at a high clip as well, like Dougie Hamilton, Dawson Mercer, Tomas Tatar, you name it. The Devils had valuable assets that could score consistently, and it was one of the reasons why their offense was so dangerous. All right, we're going to talk about injuries and how the Devils can prevent them, but it's easier said than done. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about wonderful pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with wonderful pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller all day long. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's a perfect grab and go snack for busy days. I'm a content creator. I'm constantly on the go. I'm constantly traveling. Get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Okay, I'm going to play 2 sound bites in a row. The first sound bite, Fitzgerald spoke on Jack Hughes and his shoulder troubles, because back-to-back years, Jack Hughes has needed season-ending shoulder surgery on the same shoulder to add insult to injury. Try saying what I just said 10 times fast. And then he talked about injuries in general, because it's not just Jack Hughes. His brother had to get shoulder surgery. Jesper Bratt the same way. Devils are dealing with all sorts of injuries. So here's what Tom Fitzgerald had to say about Jack Hughes and injuries in general. Take a listen.
When you have a top player like that not playing, no one plays 100% of the games, but the top guys pretty much play the majority of the games. I'd like to think Jack's shoulder injuries are behind him now, but you never know. I don't go into a roster build thinking, can we rely on so-and-so or so-and-so? Jack knows the work that's ahead of him this summer and where he needs to go from a strength-wise and in a body makeup. And, again, it's not just snapping your fingers. There's a process to that, and he's been going through it. And we've seen him grow. We've seen his body mature from his first year, his second year, and here we are 6 years later. He's got that man body, but I don't worry about it. Probably easier to say I don't worry about it than worry about it, meaning because it's happened. Injuries are a funny thing. You just sometimes you have bad luck. You're right. I mean, it's a contact sport, and injuries like we've had this year are unpreventable. In my opinion, because of the contact that the game is all about. I've said this before. You judge people. I was asked about staff members. One of the areas where I think rings true and has a lot of merit to it is when players leave here and go to other teams, and their agents call me and tell me how good they had it here versus other places, or when people come in to New Jersey. And really are blown away with the care that they get and the amount of people and quality that we have to take care of our players and the processes that we have in place. No, I'm very comfortable.
Well, I'm glad that Fitzgerald spoke highly of the medical and training staff in New Jersey, and I guess the Devils have one of the best in the NHL, ironically. But yeah, injuries are unpredictable, and like I said in the prior episode, it's really hard to be like LeBron James or Tom Brady when you're playing into your 40s and still one of the best to do it. Like, you don't slow down, you don't show your age all that often, or you deal with little to no injury. It's really tough because injuries in sports, like I just said, it's erratic and it can happen at any given point. And I guess you can make the argument that Jack Hughes, when it came to both of his shoulder injuries, they were just freak accidents, because last season, the start of his injury troubles began in St. Louis when it seemed like he just tripped up and went crashing into the boards by himself. And same thing happened this year in Vegas. And I knew right away he's probably going to miss significant time due to him injuring that same shoulder and him having trouble like lifting it. So, yeah, I mean, it's a freak accident. Jesper Bratt getting shoulder surgery, I think that was a surprise for everyone. Fitzy said that Bratter's been dealing with it for years, actually, and that he's just been playing through it. Luke Hughes, shoulder surgery, like his brother. Brendan Dillon, a neck injury. I'm really hoping for the best. Jonathan Kovacevic, knee injury during the playoffs. He won't be ready to go at the start of training camp, and he might miss the first part of the season. We'll see what happens. But I really don't know what to make of these injuries, because it's just like, yes, injuries are unpredictable, and sometimes you just can't avoid them, especially in a contact sport like hockey. It's very difficult. The one thing I can just say is, like, is there any way where maybe some of the players can gain more muscle or something like that, so that way they're not really prone to like maybe injuring themselves after a hit or a tumble or something like that? I saw a lot of people talking about on social media, but when it comes to injuries, it's just like, this is one of the main reasons why the Devils are not contenders, is because they're too injury prone. Like, how do you avoid it? That's just so difficult. And it's one of the reasons why I saved it for the final segment, because I really don't have an answer. The first two segments, I had answers, but this one in particular, this is where I'm puzzled. This is where I'm stumped, because I'm just like, you can't avoid injury in hockey because it's a contact sport, and sometimes it's just a freak accident. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. Maybe you have the answers, but I'm just going to say this. If the Devils continue to deal with the injury bug, then they're not really going to go all that far. The first half of the year, they dealt with little to no injury, but as the season progressed, they were dropping like flies. So we're just going to have to wait and see, but I know it's probably not the answer you want to hear, but I really have no concrete solution when it comes to avoiding injury, especially in this sport. So maybe you have an answer. Let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X Page app at TreyMatt4 or the show's X Page app at Locked On Devils. What were some of your main takeaways from Fitzgerald's exit interview? Were you happy with his answers? Were you not satisfied with them? Leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube once again, or hit me up on my social media platforms. As for today's episode, that's all the time I have for you. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day, New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks for listening once again.